Hello guys and gals, and welcome back to another episode of Haunted Gaming. This time we take a look at a creepypasta called A Lesson on Intent. So, that being said, sit down, relax, and enjoy A Lesson on Intent. To avoid having more eye rolls and thought put into this, I'm going to explain a few things. I came to deliver a warning, but like a stranger running up to you and yammering warnings at random, without explaining myself first, the warning will fall on deaf ears. There are those who legitimately believe in magical forces out there even in this day and age, or at least those who still open their mind to its possibility. For those people, I have cut this in two. If you believe yourself sufficiently knowledgeable on the occult already, or at least open to its possibilities, feel free to skip to of intent. I'd be surprised if the majority did. However, for the rest of you, allow me to explain why you should believe a single word I say. So let's begin with a lesson. I have seen many stories of occult happenings, and more recently in video games. Most would roll their eyes at the former and guffaw at the latter. While I do not doubt for a moment that the vast majority of these are fictional, that isn't to say they all are. And I can for a fact confirm several. Yes, hyper-realistic gore in a game is ludicrous. Yes, if ghosts did exist, a game would seem a very unlikely place for it to bind itself back to the mortal plane. But what you can see, and what is actually there, aren't always the same thing. The 3DS is a strong example of this. The very system itself is built on an optical illusion. I assure you the only thing that it is in the third dimension is the system itself. But that isn't what you see when you look at its screen. Is a ghost haunting it? Or haunting through it? If the glitches, blood, and whatnot are not generated by the game's own programming but from an outside source, why then should they be restricted by the same logic? Then we have disbelief on a grander scale. At the very existence of said spooks and spells, you must realize that the human body has 5 senses, that it evolved over thousands of years to perpetuate its existence. Magic does not occur often. Why then would humans have evolved a sense of magic? Theoretically, we could be looking at something magical or ghastly right now, but if our brains cannot make heads or tails of it, the information the brain receives of that thing's existence will most likely be disregarded. That doesn't prove anything, I know, but it means that you can't disprove magic any better than I can prove it. And is it not considered wiser to, on the side of caution when venturing into the unknown? What little proof I can provide, without a doubt, is your very dreams, as it is something we all must have experienced whether we remember them fully or not. You see, no matter how fantastical the story is, or something spawned purely of imagination, it has to have come from somewhere. A person who was born blind cannot imagine color. We thought of magic, so it has to have at least a remote foundation from something that is real. For this, I refer to dreams, which are quite fantastical, but often filled with familiar things. Our minds require to dream to sort out its thoughts and memories. Our minds disregard irrelevant information, or things it simply cannot comprehend, but it may still register those occurrences. Perhaps then, our dreams aren't so fantastical. Perhaps our dreams are closer to what reality truly is, and not what our senses have made it out to be. Through dreams or various means of warping one's normal senses in the waking world, we could have technically learned of magic, even if it is otherwise intangible to us. It may sound ridiculous when simplified, but do not close your mind to the concept of magic and the occult. At the very least, it is just as likely to exist as it is to not. Now, when we're talking of intent, if you made it this far, you hopefully don't think of me as some rambling fool. Now that I know you are both reading and considering my words, I can deliver my warning. It does not happen to many people, but it does happen, these occult occurrences. Technically they can happen with anything, but the ones I have come to warn you are of specifically the 3DS related rather. Yes, not something you would think a witch or warlock to be casting from, is it? But the object in question doesn't matter so much. Whoever has been doing this simply chose that device of the many things they possessed. You see, the object can be anything, and even the occult words are not so important. Think of a mortar and pestle. You need them to mix or crush foods or medicines, but ultimately you could bang 2 rocks together and produce the same effect. A drunk could spew gibberish and just so happen to speak some occult words, but they wouldn't do anything on their own. They need power. The power needed does not reside in your 3DS, but your body, rather. The electrical impulses your brain operates your entire existence on. Your intent gives it shape, and that is the meat of the spells. Whoever has been reaching out to people through the 3DS has very ill intent. I can tell you this. It is not focused on any one person. So when the death of one does not sate it, it simply finds another. It doesn't start as much, so you have to pay close attention. Sometimes a name will become altered, sometimes just regular glitches within games. It gets worse very quickly. It only starts small, so he can test you. If this happens, you would have to discard the 3DS entirely, or die. But who's gonna knowingly take that option? A 3DS might be a bit pricey, but you can't play anything if you're dead. Sure, you haven't heard anything from police about unusual deaths or murders, but how many people die on Earth every day? The police do not know what to look for in these cases. They don't know or believe occult things can even exist, making it effectively untraceable. If it starts to happen, get rid of your 3DS, not the games, the system. Tossing your system out the window isn't exactly your ideal scenario, though, is it? They say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So let's fight fire with fire. We know the killer uses occult spells to kill through the 3DS. I have seen this happen several times already, and fortunately I still hear their screams, not even audible. They started out audible, but the bulk of the sound was mental. Like you could feel the emotion behind their cry even after the actual sound went dead, among other things. If you don't own a 3DS, well, you're safe from this particular killer. Otherwise, I will tell you how to ward them off, break any connection they may have gotten on your system. Place your hands firmly on the system. Doesn't matter where, speak the words Nokumala, Fawel, Lok, Inar, Doan. Your pronunciation does not have to be exact or even good. As long as it is similar, you should be fine. What is truly is important is really your intent. Do you want to live? Do you want to keep your 3DS? Well, then you want this person out, and that intent is what the spell etches into your system. There! That wasn't too difficult or time-consuming now, was it? No sparks or flickering lights. Like I said, magic is a largely intangible thing, normally, so actually perceiving it openly would be a rare thing indeed. I'm not going to kid myself, the vast majority of you did nothing. Either you don't believe me or simply do not think you would be targeted. Well, good for you, I suppose. To the ones who did follow along, sorry. I would tell you a demon is going to come through your 3DS, but what does that even mean? What is a demon really? Is it that shadow in your psyche everyone keeps to push hate and sorrow into? Eventually, if left unintended, those shadows tend to grow teeth and claws of their own, or is a demon simply a title given to a man through actions that are no longer deemed humane? I suppose I'm a bit of both. I've seen several die already, and intend to see several more yet. See, this is what society wanted me to do. I would hate to disappoint the masses. They outnumber me after all. For now. I cannot remember the exact reason I started killing people, but I remember learning many things back then. I learned that being quiet and trying to do your own thing is bad, that it's a sign of weakness, so strong and repugnant people are more desirable. I don't have physical strength, so I showed them a different kind of power. The second one should not have died. She's just seen too much. She was going to tell on me. I couldn't have that. I killed her to save myself. Self-preservation, that's the law of nature, so killing her is abiding by the law. I also learned that deviations from the norm are grounds for insult, ridicule, and possibly physical abuse. To avoid that, I adapted myself to a more normal life that I now go by. I've already killed several people, so I figured that was my normal. So I continue to kill because it's what is normal for me. It's what society wants, right? I do still hear their screams even now. I'm glad I recorded them. Oh, I listen to them every night before bed. I'm sorry. I lied about my intent. No, but don't be too worried. I don't lie about the ward. You did indeed place an occult warding on your 3DS. You see, I am, or was human. I think I still am. Anyways, this is not important. I know it is unpleasant to die, so I won't strip you of your ability to avoid it. Those I still get can be considered non-believers, and in that I have a more sound reason to end their lives. Ignorance. Stubbornness. Well, I suppose I don't need too many reasons. I don't plan on having to explain myself to anyone anytime soon. Ironically, that ward is how I find them. I know what a 3DS is, and I know what it looks like. I know what the host spoke to activate the ward, and I know what their intent was. By casting it, you placed a blip on my radar. So what this all boils down to, I suppose, is a competition between you and me, you know. So whose intent's stronger? Yours to place the ward at the time, or mine to kill you? I'll see you later. Well, what the fuck was that? I guess it was a ritual pasta in my opinion, but I'm not really sure to be quite honest, and moving on to see how it was, well, I'll be honest with you, it was confusing at first, but when you get to the ritual, you get this sweet twist, which I kind of saw coming, but due to the shorter length, it was pretty nice to see, because a hit just initially happened as you were thinking. And it was nice to see the author, really the narrator, become the enemy. And the hunter, really, so if you did end up doing this to your Nintendo 3DS, you're pitted against this unknown variable. And so the end was pretty cool when you think about it. It didn't really put gore or demons into it, but it used this logical, inquisitive stance on the matter and made you think of possibilities and question something that happened. I mean, magic, the way it describes it is really unique. It can imply that there are demons and gore and all that kind of stuff, but at the same time it makes you think about it in a way that you can't prove it or you can prove it. It's really nice to see how this does it, and I like the way that it really made you think as you were reading it. I mean, it was confusing, but it was nice, and when you got to the end it all became, this whole full circle. And that was a really cool way. That was a really nice thing, and I really like that. Now, I, for one, didn't do this. I didn't do the ritual, so I have no intention of being killed by said person. But if you did it, and it made you just a tad paranoid of the situation, even just a little, then I believe the creepypasta did its job. It raised eeriness through the questioning and the ending, and again, therefore, it did what it set out to do. Now, don't worry, its creepypastas are obviously fake, so you're not really in danger. Or are you? I don't know, But in the end, what would you rate this, and what would you change to make it better? This has been another episode of Haunted Gaming, and if you like what you saw, then like, comment, and subscribe. This is me, Mutahar, and I am